Welcome back to Pictures of Jesus in the Old Testament. This morning, we come to Genesis 14 through 16. And the word of the Lord reads, Now, when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He divided his forces against them by night, and he and his servants attacked them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. So we brought back all the goods and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. So, what's this referring to? Well, we've been talking about Abraham. Well, Abraham, when he went on his journey, he brought his nephew named Lot with him. Now, in the previous chapter, Genesis 13, Abraham, he had a big company of people, big flock, big livestock. Remember, God blessed him even though he sinned. Lot also had a big company, a lot of livestock, and their servants were arguing because there wasn't enough land. So Abram was like, look, Lot, pick where you want to go. Lot looked out. He saw the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. He was like, oh, those are good lands. And he went out after them. However, there was a battle. It was 4 kings against 5, and Lot was on the side of the 5 kings with Sodom and Gomorrah and some other kings. However, those 5 kings got defeated and they got taken into captivity, and Lot and his family and all that he had got taken into captivity. So a servant runs back, tells Abraham, and Abraham, like it says here, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went out. He divided his forces among them by night, and he and his servants attacked them and pursued them as far as Hobah. And he brought back all the goods and brought back his brother Lot, or his nephew Lot, as well as the women and the people. So Abraham, when he hears of this, he arms his 318 trained servants and goes out to deliver Lot, to rescue Lot. So, what can we learn from this passage? Well, true faith is diligent in battle with the resources it has and trusts God for the victory. I mean, just think of this. I told you that they were captured, Lot and his family were captured by 4 kings. Now, that isn't for individuals, that's for kingdoms of trained soldiers and armies. 4 kingdoms of trained warriors. I mean, this is what they lived for, this is what they were trained for. 4 kingdoms. And Abraham, he has 318 of his servants that Abraham himself trains. Abraham, he isn't a warrior. Remember, he was called out of a land to go following the promise of God. He wasn't a warrior, but apparently he knew something. But he trained 318 men and went out against them. So 319, including Abraham, not professionally trained soldiers, go against 4 armies of trained men. Why would they do this? Well, if Abraham didn't believe, if Abraham didn't have faith in God, this would be a suicide mission. But he trusted God. Listen to this in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 34. It says, by faith, speaking of how they fought, it says, by faith, they quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword. Listen, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the foreigners. So Abraham went out by faith. So what does this teach us? What can we learn? We learn that true faith is diligent in battle with the resources it has and trusts God for the victory. And the same with you and same with me. If we are truly Christian, if we have put our faith in Jesus Christ, repenting, turning from our sins to believe in Jesus Christ and to follow him. Listen, just like Abraham, we must be diligent to put to death our sin. We must be diligent to seek to walk in righteousness. We have an army of principalities and powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places, much greater than those four kingdoms of trained warriors. Remember, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. That was flesh and blood. That's one thing. We have a greater enemy. But we must be diligent against the enemy. We must seek to put to death our sins. We must be in the word. We must be praying, calling upon God. We must be diligent. But we don't trust in what we do. We trust God for the victory. Now, secondly, more importantly, how does this passage point us to Jesus Christ? Well, just as Abraham willingly risked his life and won a victory to save his nephew, Jesus Christ willingly, not risk, laid down his life for the salvation of his people, for the deliverance of his people from the bondage to sin and the bondage to Satan. See, Abraham, by faith, he went out at the risk of his life and he won a victory, but he didn't die. But Jesus Christ, he went out to deliver not just one family and some others, but families all over the world. He went out as a deliverer, but he won his victory not by risking his life, but by willingly laying down his life. You're like, how does that work? How do you win a victory? By death. Well, as Hebrews tells us in chapter 2, that there's one who had the power of death, that is the devil. And that's not just physical death, that's eternal death. Why? Because if the devil can keep you in unforgiven sin, he can keep you unrepentant. When you die, he takes you to hell with him, as it were, because that's where he's going. So someone has to die and defeat him and rise again. And that was Jesus Christ. The book of Hebrews says that Jesus Christ, through his death, he destroyed the one who had the power of death, that is the devil. Listen, that he might deliver, just like Abraham delivered Lot, that he might deliver those who through fear of death were subject to a lifetime bondage. Colossians tells us when he forgave our sins, being nailed to the cross, it says he triumphed or had victory over the principalities and powers. He made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in it. Jesus Christ went and laid down his life, but it wasn't taken from him. He willingly did this, just like Abraham took his 318 trained servants and willingly went after Lot. He's like, yeah, these are four armies of trained warriors, but I believe in God and I will willingly go after Lot. Jesus Christ says this in John chapter 10. He says, no one takes my life from me, but I lay it down of my own. I have the power to lay it down, the power to take it up again. This command I received from the Father. He willingly laid down his life. He willingly laid down his life to defeat the one who had the power of death and hell. He rose again on the third day. And he is the warrior deliverer. He is the warrior rescuer of his people, of you and of me. If we will look upon what he has done for us, and we will put our faith in him, and we will commit our lives to him by faith, turning from our sins to follow him, then we can look to Jesus Christ, the greater Abraham, the warrior deliverer, and we can bless his holy name.